I honestly can't think of a more classic way to use leftover ham and ham bones than making split pea soup. When I say split pea soup, I really mean split pea stew, but I don't know, for branding purposes, I guess we'll refer to the former. Before we begin, let's nerd out about legumes. Split peas are just another legume, but if you want to get specific, they're actually a field pea. I know that there are yellow split peas, there are green split peas. I could be wrong, but there might be an heirloom variety of different colored split peas. This soup is rustic, it's chunky, it's smoky, it's hearty, it's cowboy food. And I don't even really know what I mean by that, but it kind of makes sense. Cowboy food. A week prior to this, I smoked an entire ham for another video. That delicious glazed beauty yielded me some wonderful leftover ham and ham bones, which is exactly what I'll be using to make this split pea soup. And don't worry if you don't have a whole ham left over, this can be made without it. Alright, so we have our bones removed. I'm gonna pick off most of the meat, and those are gonna be the nice little porky bits in our soup. Don't waste that. Whatever stays on the bone, if you don't get it all, is just gonna add to the flavor of the soup, so don't spend hours and hours picking every single little piece of meat off, but, you know, do your best. If you're gonna use whole ham bones, do your best to harvest the meat from the bones. I use a combination of my hands and a sharp, flexible knife. Shred and slice the meat into pieces for the soup, getting rid of any overly fatty or sinewy pieces along the way. This is gonna be your chance to sift through all the gnarly bits. Store the bones and meat in freezer bags or sealed containers, or just use them right away. Okay, the bones are situated, let's make the soup. Here we have some mirepoix, aka carrot, onion, and celery. Of course, the green split peas. These are really what's going to give our soup its color and texture. Then some dry sherry wine, and you could also use white wine or Madeira if you want. Then the herb sachet of bay leaf and thyme, garlic, salt, pepper, and of course the ham bones. Alright, so here I have the ham bone from the ham that I made last week. Now, this is sort of what makes split pea soup sort of have that signature smoky ham flavor and what kind of makes it split pea soup. It is optional, however, I almost hesitate to say that because it's kind of what is the signature part of the dish. If you don't have a big ol' ham bone, you can always use bacon or like a smoked ham hock from a butcher. Any smoked pork is really going to do the trick here. So I actually like to remove most of the meat off of the bone. Some people like to keep meat on the bone. I like to remove most of it off and then get these really, really roasty in a ripping hot oven to kind of induce that Maillard roasted flavor to the soup itself. So that's what we're going to do. Roast the ham bones in a 500-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 10-15 minutes or just until they're nice and charred. While those roast, start the soup. In a stock pot over low-medium heat, drop 2 tablespoons of butter followed by the carrot, celery, and onions all diced up. That's just called a mirepoix. Measurements are in the description. Then the 5 minced garlic cloves and a dash of salt. We really want to keep this heat super low because we're sweating these vegetables. We're not giving them any color. Sweat that down until the vegetables start to wilt down and the onions turn translucent. It's going to take about 10 or so minutes. By now, the bones should be done, so remove them from the oven and set them aside at the ready. They should be nice and roasty. Once the vegetables are sweat down, pour in half a cup of sherry wine and stir. Continue cooking until the wine reduces by half. This is going to take 4 or 5 minutes. You know, that should do the trick, but really use your eyes here. Once the wine is reduced, in with 1 pound or 454 grams of dried split peas, a few cracks of black pepper, and the herbs. Finally, top her off with 2 quarts or 8 cups of good stock. This can be chicken or pork. Then nuzzle in the charred ham bones. And remember to always season as you cook. It's very important to layer in salt. You really want to take it easy on the seasoning because the ham's already super salty, so keep that in mind. Okay, so the hard, in air quotes, that part's over. Now we're going to simmer the soup over low-medium heat for roughly 2 hours. You are most likely going to get some foamy scum at the top of your soup. Just, do your best to skim that away. After that, sit back and just let it ride. After an hour of simmering, the soup will have reduced and thickened a bit, but we aren't quite there yet. Notice that we can still see whole peas in the soup. We do not want that, so simmer for another hour or so. Nearly 2 hours in and our soup is looking fantastic. The peas have almost completely dissolved into the soup. Remove the bones from the soup and set them aside. Their work here is done. Next, drop in 2 cups of the ham pieces and stir them about. Cook for another 15 or so minutes. So, split pea soup gets its signature hearty texture from the starch in the peas, the collagen in the stock, and reduction. After a couple hours on the stove, the peas will have transformed from solid to mush. Really, for lack of a better word, it's mush, but I promise it's scrumptious mush. Remember, taste and adjust seasoning, then we are ready to serve. I like to eat my split pea soup piping hot with some cooling yogurt or creme fraiche over the top, and of course a nice crusty loaf of bread. This dish is so much better with a nice loaf, trust me. You know, don't skip it, it's really good. The power trio of a chunky, hearty soup, the crunch from the bread, and the smoky ham flavor is undefeated. This soup is sure to make you want to buy a horse-drawn carriage and head west and search for gold and a new life. Cowboy food. No longer will the sight of stewed peas remind you of baby food. And I suppose I would categorize this one with any other stew. As you just saw, split pea done right should be chunky, viscous, hearty. It should be filling. You should walk away from the table full. Not like chicken noodle soup. This is supposed to be like super. And if you've been watching these videos for a while now, I really want to say thank you, for reals. Thank you so much. It's blokes like you that keep me making these videos. That being said, if you did dig the video, it would mean a lot to me if you were to share my content with your friends, with your family, with your pets, whoever. Any additional exposure that the channel can get would be very helpful for me as I try to grow this thing. I thank you in advance and give you a nice, big, warm hug. Thank y'all. And we'll see you next week. Toodaloo.